Welcome to the Expansive CEO podcast. I'm your host, Hannah Chapman, founder of Expansive CEO and X Squared Wealth Planning. Buckle in as we explore how to create true prosperity and build a business and a life that expands beyond yourself and makes a dent in the universe. Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the Expansive CEO podcast. I am your host, Hannah Chapman, and today I am talking with Susanne Goldstein, who is the founder and CEO of Dare Human. She's also an executive coach and a feminine leadership mentor, and we are going to talk about what can sometimes be a tricky and triggering topic, because just the polarity, the polarizedness we have in the world right now between men and women, between what we view as masculine and what we view as feminine, all of these different things. Like, there's a lot out there right now that is very interesting to see. And so I know, Susanne, you have been working with women for a very long time to bridge this gap and help create really healthy expressions of healthy masculine, healthy feminine, bringing people into balance within themselves. And that's something that I am so, so passionate about and I love to talk about. So, Susanne, thank you so much for being here. I would love for you to introduce yourself a little bit more, and talk to us about strategenics and what that means and what you're bringing to the world, because that's going to flow into the rest of the conversation.
I love it. Thank you so much for asking me to be here. I'm really thrilled to be here and I love our conversations, period. Um, so let's see. By way of background, I was one of those women who grew up to achieve. That was what we were supposed to do. And getting A's and winning was the thing. And so I kind of entered the working world many years ago as one of those women who was like, I'm going to crush it. I'm going to be as excellent as any man that's around me. And as a result of being that in that world, and I produced my first Hollywood movie when I was 27 for Disney, and I helped build a bunch of technology companies, and I ended up going to a mid-career program at the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard to study social entrepreneurship, and ended up being more knowledgeable in that topic than most people around, ended up teaching there for a couple of years. Like, my life has been this really amazing set of accomplishments. That's not the thing I'm proud of in my life. Because what I realized is those accomplishments were me chasing love. If I could just be this successful, they would love me. If I could just produce my first Hollywood movie at 27, they would love me. If I could just write a best-selling book, they would love me. I would go on and on and on, trying to find love exterior to myself. But what I knew I needed to do eventually was to go through my own waking up journey, my spiritual awakening, my consciousness awakening, and learn to fill my own cup one grain of golden sand at a time until my love for me, and I don't mean it in some weird way, but my love for me filled me so I stopped externally seeking. And when that happened, what I got was like a bird's eye view of energetics, a bird's eye view of understanding that everything is energy. And that when we become masterful with our own energy, and when I talk about energy, what I mean is there are two sides to every magnet that connects. There's the positive side and the negative side of the magnet, and those two make a whole. And what we don't understand in life is that, many of us don't, is that when we're constantly seeking, coming back to that zero balance body is what I call it, of energetics, of being in neutral. And when I give away negative energy, the only void I have in my life is to draw back in negative energy to bring me back to zero. Same with if I give out positive. But what happens with women, especially as we've grown up in the corporate world beyond, is that we've had to sharpen our elbows to succeed in a man's world. I work with a lot of executive women who are in high finance, investing, yourself in financial services, right?
Yeah.
It's like, in order to succeed, there's certain traits that we've had to take on and we've forgotten. what it's like to actually be a woman. And so when we talk about energetics, a great way to describe it is like that positive and negative sides of the magnet that I discussed. Negative doesn't mean bad, it's just a version of energy, right? And so I want to call the positive version of energy for a minute. I'm going to call it masculine energy or yang energy in the Chinese philosophy. And that negative energy, I'm going to call feminine energy or yin energy. And the positive energy, the reason I've named the positive masculine, people are like, you're a feminine energetics person. Why are you calling the negative the masculine? It's because, I mean, the positive the masculine. It's because the masculine energy is the power energy. It's the sun. It's it's the drive. It's the excitement. It's the, I want to get shit done. It's the fun. It's the strategy. It's the achievement. It's the positive side of all of that we want to do in life. The feminine energy is mysterious. It's related to the moon. It's about receiving. And each of us has masculine and feminine energy in us. And those two things together are essential for us to master because they work together. So for instance, you want more money in your life, you got to do the money making activities that are in the masculine, and then you got to lean back and be in the receiving of the feminine energy to actually receive the money coming in. We're
Mhm.
constantly playing with this dance inside of us. And so I came up with a concept called strategetics that really explains how all of this works.
That is, oh my gosh, there's so much, and we're gonna dive into a lot of that because, like you said, I mean, there's so much of that that I relate to as well, being in finance, um, and having, grown up as an adult anyway. I started at like 21. I started working in a bank, and working my way through there, moving into financial planning. It's very, I would say, wounded masculine dominant, if you put it
As
simply,
is,
right? It's
as
not
is
it's
our society.
right, and that so it's not even that it's heavily male dominated. It is a male dominated field. It's about 20% women, give or take a little bit, and 80% men in financial advisory services in my role as an advisor. The administrative side is heavily skewed towards women, but not the advisory role, right? And so in order there's that definitely that feeling of in order to keep up, I have to do so much. I have to do so much outpouring of myself. I also have to, um, you know, uh, for me, what I noticed was really like the sharper when we say, sharpen your elbows, there was some of that, but it was for me, it was more like sharpening my, sarcasm, right?
Mm,
Being able to be, one of the boys or, hang with them and not, not be my soft self.
yeah, that's
And
not going to get you anywhere.
right. Well, and it's so interesting, or, they say it's not gonna get you anywhere.
Right.
That's the
We're
conventional
proving
wisdom.
that wrong now, but it's a parallel path to our current structure and system.
Exactly, exactly. It's like you have to do it this way. You have to, grind. You have to hustle. You have to do more and more and more. Um, and the toxic part of it, or the wounded part of it, is, the competitiveness. The if someone else wins, I lose
Yeah.
piece, right? That's so prevalent,
Yeah.
in finance, but also in business in general. And so it's been so freeing and so healing for me. I realized it when I was in that space. I realized that I didn't like how I was showing up. It didn't feel good. Um it when I was, in at the old firm I was at, where I was the only female advisor in the entire team. There were about 10 advisors. And when I left and created X squared, that was a huge piece of it for me, was just being able to relax into being myself. And over the last, almost 4 years now, it really has been a journey of loving my soft side and understanding that my soft, nurturing side, when paired with that, the go-getter spirit, the commitment that I can give to things, the bright, bold sunshine energy, right? All of that, when it's paired with a balance of that soft, nurturing side, that is where, like, people are so drawn to that now. That
You should come teach
balance,
strategics with me next week. Like, that's
right?
exactly what it's about. Exactly what it's about. I love that. And I'm so glad that you had that discovery and that awakening and that you freed yourself. Most of us are still living in the masculine energy hustle culture. And when I say masculine energy hustle culture, what I mean is that there's no man who exists today in this year that is responsible for how our world works now. But our world was designed by some people. And when people design something, just like if you organize your kitchen, you put your forks and knives where you want them. If someone said, no, 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 your forks and knives have to go over there because that's how our system works, you'd be like, that doesn't work for me. So when people were designing business, we're designing the concept of business. We're designing our current capitalist systems. What they said is, hey, this is what works for me. I'm a dude, because that's who in general was designing it. Women shouldn't be voting. Black people should count as 3/5 of a human. And as we start creating this capitalistic system, which by the way, I'm not against capitalism. I love enlightened capitalism. I hate toxic capitalism. But to get ahead in the capitalistic world in this place that was designed by certain people for themselves, anybody who else didn't fit that mold had to become someone different in order to fit in. And so what you went through and what I talk to my clients all about all the time is that it's a re-remembering of who you are as a woman. And here's the crazy part. There are so many men now who are really done with the toxic masculine energy hustle culture as well.
Mhm.
They're done. And so I'm like talking to a lot of men about how we can really help them through the process as well, because women waking up is great. And most women, when they wake up and they decide to go and do their own thing and free themselves and remember who they are, they're exceptional. Like, women are outperforming men in the business world in big ways. And it's because when we learn to lead like a woman and we replace competition with collaboration and we focus on cooperation instead of individualism, our elbows soften, they're soft, and we're inviting and we allow people to come and grow and be themselves. But that's not what was making us successful at the Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, Cisco Systems, Netflix, wherever people are working, where the hustle culture and working until 11 o'clock at night is like, a badge of honor. But
Right.
we burn out. We don't have a way of standing in it. And so this system that I've developed called strategetics, it's literally the words strategy and energetics smushed together, strategetics. And the idea is that when you become masterful at understanding the strategy around your energy, like most of us think about, I gotta manage my food intake, I gotta manage my exercise. We don't think about managing our energy.
Mhm.
We just use it all day long. And then Friday, people even say, thank God it's Friday because I can't wait to collapse or drink because like the week was stressful,
Yeah.
right? We want to live in a world, I believe, that that's not the feeling, that
Right. Yeah,
every day feels delicious.
you're not waiting for the vacation or the weekend to escape
Yeah.
your everyday reality, yeah.
And this is very much a part of Western American culture and other cultures that are emulating American culture in hopes of being the kind of country we are. And it was great in our first founding years and probably our first 175 years. It was a very successful system. But then, like most things, over time, they don't necessarily improve. It's like the ninth season of your favorite TV show is never as good as the first season, right? Things tend to devolve over time unless you're very focused and intentional on having them evolve over time. And so what's happened is we haven't learned how to manage our energy, but even perhaps more importantly, we haven't learned how to bring energetics into our strategy. And how that looks is, imagine that you're in a big corporation like you used to be, and you're walking into the conference room for a meeting. And because you're a woman, and because to get to a certain level in your work, you've had to be competitive. You've had to put in the hours. You've had to try to win over the other person. So you walk into the meeting and you know you're going to be discussing A, B, and C, and you're like, that guy over there, I got to crush him this month because my numbers aren't as good as his numbers, or whatever the situation is. So we walk in and we're trying to be in those unhealthy versions of masculine energy, which is the competition. It's the lack of collaboration. It's the self focus. It's the ego driven stuff. It's the narcissism driven stuff. It's the overwork part of stuff, as opposed to the healthy masculine, which is, I'm going to hold that frame. I'm going to create space. I'm going to get things done and be strategic and use my brilliance. That's healthy masculine. But that doesn't exist as much today as perhaps it did once upon a time. And so women in particular are subject to this because they're like, okay, to get ahead, I'm going to bring this tough energy to the room. And then people are turned off in general. But what happens to women also is they say that they take that same tough energy and they bring it into the rest of their lives. So you end up having moms who are driving their children so that they can make sure they get into Harvard,
Mhm.
because that's the only thing that matters, because they want their kid to be the best of the best of the best, but they also bring it into their relationships. So they go into a relationship, a dating situation at the beginning, and they bring their masculine energy, and the guy is completely turned off. And they're like, wait, I'm smart, I'm successful, I'm beautiful. Why can't I get a second date? And it's because they have not tapped in to the energetics of being in feminine energy. And so it's created a catastrophe. I don't know if you've seen all of these articles lately about the end of dating. It's like
Mhm.
people are done dating. They don't want to get on apps anymore. Kids, when they do stuff, they all go out in groups. They don't date one on one anymore. Maybe after you've gone out with a group of people for a while, you see someone who's in the group who operates in the way that you like, and maybe you'll ask them on a one on one thing. But for older generations, we're having problems. We're having population problems. We're having all kinds of problems because these energetics have not been taught, they've not been mastered, and they're certainly being perpetuated in the negative way as we continue moving forward.
Well, one thing that you shared that I want to, kind of call back to is that, um, the systems that worked, maybe even in the case of America, to like build to where we are today, aren't working anymore. And I wanted to like add some nuance to that because it also feels like it worked for certain people,
Men.
right? Yeah, it worked for the white European men, right? And that's who succeeded in that system. And so what we're looking at now, um, especially since, I would say the 1970s forward, when women were able to get their own bank account, able to create their own business without having to have a cosigner, able to get their own mortgage, able to get their own credit cards, right? These are new occurrences in our society. I
Some of
mean,
them didn't happen until the 80s.
I
I mean,
know it's like 40 to 50 years is not a long time, is not a long time for all of these progressive measures to have taken place. And so what we're seeing is like, okay, we are calling out the fact that, okay, that system that worked for this sliver of the population, and we want it to work for everyone. We want to
that's right.
create a system that works for everyone, that works for women, that works for people of color, that works for, immigrants coming in that want to have a better life for their family. We want a system that actually supports everyone in the system, not one that's like, okay, it's just working for the top,
Yep.
for this one demographic, and then everyone else is, SOL, basically, and so I feel like that's the growing pain. That's the big shift, um, that
And
we're
we're certainly
making.
seeing it all over, right? It's like there is so much resistance to this change,
Mhm.
whether you see it in politics or you see it in business or you see it in relationships. There's so much resistance to this change because, first of all, people live for certainty. Most people need certainty to feel
Yep.
okay about their lives. And so, whenever there's any version of lack or fear of lack, like, oh my God, if that person gets the job, they're taking my job.
Right.
Well, I don't know. It was never your job to begin with. But the thing is, when you live, and I'm going to just introduce a concept here that some people may get and may not get, and that's okay. I'm a huge fan of the Matrix movies. I watch them back to back to back every New Year's Eve day. There's four of them. They're extraordinary. They really talk about consciousness, energetics, and freeing humans
Mhm.
because humans in those movies are enslaved inside this video simulation called the Matrix. But there are some people who have freed themselves and they are now living in what's called the real world. So if you translate that into our current system and society, we live in patriarchy. It was designed by men for men. Women had a certain role. We actually didn't even come out of the household until World War II when we needed more hands. And then as soon as we didn't need those more hands anymore, we were shoved back in the household for the 1950s. And it was a really tough time. And so when women started coming into the workforce in the late 60s, early 70s, we wore shoulder pads. Why? To take up more room at the conference table. We wore Betty business bows. Why? Because a guy was wearing a tie and we needed to look that professional. We tried to become men to fit into the system of men. And God bless the women who were willing to do that.
Yep.
They worked so hard and we stand on their shoulders, but the problem is we stand on their sharp shoulders. We stand on their sharp elbows. We did not learn from them what I think many of us are learning now, which is that we gave up a huge part of ourselves, men included too, which is that nurturing, collaborative, receiving kind of thing. And so one of the things I say all the time is I do not chase, I attract.
Mhm.
I do not chase, I attract. My energy gets to be open, and the things that are meant for me in this lifetime will come my way. And I know that because I have a trust in my relationship between me, the universe, God, energetics, whatever you want to call it, Mama, Mother Gaia. I have a knowing once I healed myself that I can step outside of the matrix. I can create a business that's successful. It can run in concert with my lifestyle because I can play in my energetics. And I know when I wake up in the morning, I am going to be having a conversation with Hannah. And so I can lean back and let the flow of the conversation happen. Whereas maybe later this afternoon, I have to get on a coaching call and I need to be a little more directive. And then maybe later I have to do something else where I actually really need to be in charge and strategic and all that stuff. I get to choose what energy and what energetics I'm bringing into every moment of my day.
Mm.
It becomes simple. It becomes easeful. And this is an awareness that most people do not know that they have. And if they can tap into it, the amount of control we can let go of, because
Mm.
most women are under stress because they don't have control. They don't have certainty. If they have money, they're worried about where the next money is coming from. If they don't have money, they're worrying where the next money is coming from. If they have tons of money, they're afraid they're going to lose the money.
Yep.
We have made money our secondary god. And money, honestly, is energy. It didn't exist before. I gave you my cow and you gave me hay. It worked out, but it got heavy to carry around the cow and the hay. And so we created currency to allow us to do that energetic exchange of cow for hay. It's just energy. Money is energy. And if you believe that, money will flow to you. But you got to understand that you have to be prepared for that kind of abundance and what it means and be able to hold it. But we're not learning these things. I wish we could teach that and emotional intelligence in kindergarten. We'd have a much healthier world.
Yeah, I think I love that, and I do believe in so many ways that same, like money is the transfer of energy throughout our economy, and we can see the good that it can do when we allow ourselves to receive more, right? When
Hmm.
we open ourselves up um to be better stewards of money, right? All of that be um conscious when we talk about I love talking about conscious capitalism and conscious entrepreneurship and
Yep.
when you are able to receive joyfully but also spend joyfully. That's a big concept that I talk about a lot with my clients and when I'm teaching different things. When you can allow money to flow away from you with joy,
Hmm.
right? I'm so happy to be paying my employees. I'm so happy to be paying my mortgage. I'm so happy to be, you know, paying for whatever, when the money goes out,
Yeah.
that you're still in joy over the
Which
fact that
is a
you
high
are
frequency.
right because you are being a conduit for like movement through the economy. When you spend money at that restaurant, they're able to pay their employees. They're able to stay in business. When you spend money with a contractor to do work, right? You're allowing your own channel to be open to receive more, to let more flow through. And it feels it feels like the proxy for that, like when we talk about teaching this younger, one of the things that we can talk about, because money in my world too, money is security, money
Hmm.
is stability, right? And
Hmm.
so those aspects are what we can translate to young children. Kids under the age of 5, they don't usually and really shouldn't know exactly what money is and what it's for because right now they're forming their idea of security and safety in the world around them,
Hmm.
and money provides that. And so if their parents are stretched, they don't have money, they can feel that. They can feel the tension. They can feel when their parents are arguing about it or their caregivers, whoever that is, they can feel if it's there or if it's not there.
Yep.
And so when we talk about receiving, being open to receive, I think that also can be taught in a similar way where, when you're happy to give and happy to be given to, right? Whether that's smiles or energy or playtime or share your stuff, right? When
Hugs.
reciprocity, right? Yeah, whatever you are utilizing or the experiences that your children are having of being open to receiving,
Hmm.
that's a really good way to like teach that concept from an early age versus try to have it all figured out, right? Like when you graduated high school, you graduated college, now you gotta figure it out.
Right. Now you're going to learn money. I got to tell a story. I double click on something you said. This is not something I intended to bring up in this conversation, but heck, we're just going where it goes.
Here we go.
So I have five nieces and nephews. And when the first nephew was born, I would play with him. He'd come over for sleepovers, all this different stuff. And when he turned 6, I love that you said that for the age of 5, they shouldn't know anything about money. When he turned 6, I took him out for a fun day for his birthday. And I brought with me a certain amount of Monopoly money. And I gave him the Monopoly money and I said, we get to go do what you want for your birthday. And you're going to make decisions. I'm going to help you about what you want. And he's like, I want to go to a toy store. I said, great. So we went to the toy store and let's just make up a number. Say I gave him $50, right? And so we would walk around the toy store. He's like, can I have this? Can I have this? Can I have this? Can I have this? And I said, I don't know. Let's look and figure out what a price is and what would you have to do about that. And so I don't know if other people do this with their kids, but it was so much fun for me and fun for him too. And so he would pick something out and I would say, okay, if that's $30, let's count out 30 of your Monopoly dollars. Oh, look, you have a 10, let's use that and like get to the number 30. And so he would be able to say, okay, now I have 20 more dollars. What can I do with it? And I remember my second nephew, I'll never forget this. We went out and did a very similar thing, and he found like 10 toys he wanted. And so he relayed them all out on the toy store floor. and started putting monopoly money on them to figure out how he could stretch his dollars, which I thought was extremely clever. And then when we would go to check out, like I would slip them my credit card, but I would have him count out for each toy what he was spending. And he started to learn that this is an exchange.
Mhm.
He's exchanging this monopoly money for this thing he desires. If we can keep that frequency, like you said, that, oh my God, I get to give you these monopoly dollars and you get to give me this toy I've always wanted, it stays in the frequency of joy. And what many people are learning now is that emotion is just an energetic signature. In fact, Michael Bernard Beckwith, one of my favorite spiritual teachers, he says emotions are just energy in motion. Emotions, energy in motion. So if you have a high vibrating emotion like a joy, positive expectation, love, they vibrate very high and fast. And if you have a low, slow emotion, sadness, grief, hopelessness, excuse me, those are low, slow emotions. Well, so is competition. So is crushing the other person. All of those are low, slow emotions. And none of them are actually helping to for humanity to grow, to ascend, to become our next evolved version of self. And so I think what you're saying about that relationship to money is so, so crucial and important.
I love that example. And I think, to be clear, as a financial advisor, as someone with kids of my own, right? Like, if you teach your kids about money, there is nothing wrong with that at all. Or doing exercises like you did. I think it's so good. It's so clever because if you don't teach them anything, they just think, oh, you have the card, just do the card, right? Just I can have
Mhm.
whatever I want, just put your card in the thing. That's what they see now. And very rarely see cash.
Or even their phone. Here, just tap your phone, you'll get
Right.
whatever you want.
Yeah, it's just all in there, right? Um, where I have a similar story with my youngest when she was probably 6, 5 or 6. She had birthday money and she had dollars, and we did the same. We went to Target. That poor girl she has a hard time choosing. There's
Mm,
so many options, and she's like she has to deliberate for a long time. She finally chooses. She has her dollars, and so I was gonna have her do the thing, like at the register, like here you go. And then when we got to the register, she's like, "Wait, I have to give my dollars to get the thing?" And she was like really upset about it. I was like, yeah."
oh my God, her poor little heart.
I know. She was like, but I like having the dollars. Like, oh, okay. And so we had a moment and we figured it out, but it was very, it was interesting in that moment too to see kind of that the connection already between,
Mhm.
like, oh, I have the thing. I don't know if I want to give away the thing. And that, but well, to get this one, you have to give that one, right? Just that concept of starting to understand.
And the fact that she somehow gleaned, I don't know how, that money is our second God, right? I don't even know if she knew there was a first God or universe or energy or what I call physics. But the fact that she knew money was the second God, unbelievable.
And yeah, and there's so much that, we'll see how how things progress. Everyone has their own um biases, even from someone, like in my family where we talk pretty openly about money and all of that. They know I'm a business owner. They know, all of these things. They know what I do. They still kind of have their own ideas and thoughts about money and what things are worth. And um, yeah, so we have open conversations
Beautiful.
about things. And now they have their own debit cards and their own checking accounts where they put their money, right? So they can buy what they want and they get to choose, right? So it's very interesting. Yeah, just to see that relationship develop because it's very different from how I like my relationship with money developed when I was a child. And so seeing, generational traumas being healed and different things like that is really powerful as well.
Beautiful.
But getting back to making sure we come back to our topic of, bringing the energy that you bring the energy that you bring to your strategy, right? I think the masculine and feminine conversation, like, is so perfect in that, right? If you're bringing that wounded, unhealthy masculine into your strategy, that's what you're going to be met with
Yep.
as well. Um,
Because what you give out is what you receive.
mhm,
What you give is what you receive. This is just true of life. So if I'm mean to you and you're not an evolved human, you're just going to give me mean back. I am asking for it. And that's the relationship we have with the universe as well. I teach my clients a concept I call playing volleyball with the universe.
mm,
You're constantly in a volleyball match with the universe. The interesting thing about the volleyball match with the universe is that the universe never starts it. We have to be the first. We move first and the universe follows. So if I throw up a volleyball and it is crystal encrusted and happy, and here I'll show you, this is my volleyball. I'm sorry for those of you who can't see this. This is my
oh,
crystal encrusted volleyball. It's a big quartz cluster. Um, and you throw it up to the universe, and it's really, you believe in all of those thoughts. I can't wait to own that home. I can't wait for my kids to go to college without debt. I can't wait to speak on stage at this place. If you're throwing up stuff and it's legit in alignment and truthful, the universe's job is to reflect what you're asking for or painting the picture of, and it goes, okay, that's what she wants, and it hands you back. But if you throw up a volleyball and you're like, I really want to speak on stage, but underneath it, like or the core thought is, no one will ever like me, no one will ever pay me to be on stage. I don't think I'll be very good. I'm not worthy on being stage. I'm afraid of speaking in front of people. The universe is gonna only hear that part of it.
mm,
It doesn't hear when you say, I don't want to meet. I remember for years I threw up a volleyball. Please don't give me another toxic man. Please don't give me another toxic man. The universe does not understand the word don't. It's just like, oh, toxic man, here, have another one. Here, have another one. And it wasn't until I could change what I was throwing up in regarding to men and believing in my worth and what I deserve that I started getting back
mm.
that reflection. And so this is an energetic game we can play with ourselves all the time to help us learn how to manage our emotions, our thoughts, and ultimately our energy.
So if someone was listening to this and wondering, okay, so what's a concrete step that I can take? Like, I'm interested, I'm intrigued. Um, what does that mean? How can I bring different energy to
Mhm.
to a situation? What would be your first recommendation for someone to try?
Yeah. So here's the thing about most human beings is that we are programmed to react. It is in our brain, right? We are programmed fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. It's our, amygdala. It's the lizard brain. And that's what we do. Well, as an evolved human, instead of having stimulus that you react to, we have a stimulus and that we create what I call the millisecond. It's this tiny moment in time where we realize there's a fork in the road. I can choose to react or to respond. I can actually be choiceful about this. Now, as I said, what you put out is what you get back. This is a law of the universe. I didn't make it up. If I'm putting out reaction, I'm getting back reaction. If I'm putting out response, I'm getting back response. So when I was 27 years old and I started my waking up journey, and no one was doing personal growth stuff at the time, I noticed when I gave myself a theme for the year to like try to really get rid of my temper. And I did that by saying, I'm only going to be dramatic when drama was necessary. I was working in the film business and everybody's full of drama all the time. And I was like, I am going to become one of them. I don't want to become one of them because I don't like what that version of human looks like. So I started training myself to notice when a stimulant came at me, what I was going to do next. How am I going to be in the moment of receiving that stimulus? If someone yells at me, what's my response? Someone says to me, oh, I would never hire that person. She's a chubby cheeks. Like, when we're casting, I'm like, how do I want to be about that? What's my chosen way of being. So I realized that everything is about choice. And if you can take that millisecond, which is at the fork in the road, and you can start to slowly realize, first of all, time doesn't exist. It is proven in physics and quantum physics that time is bendable. So what if we could just expand that time, slow down time, so when the stimulus comes to you, you become choiceful and you say, at this moment in time, do I want to react to that guy or do I want to respond to that guy? And when you become choiceful in that moment, you have opened the window to be
Mhm.
able to start to understand and manage your own energy because you're becoming choiceful. So the first place I would start is by becoming aware that every behavior you have could be a different behavior because you could choose differently. So if you're the kind of person who gets home at the end of the day, and this is actually a study, it's a huge, hilarious study. Supposedly, men can absorb 10,000 spoken words a day, and women need to speak 25,000 words a day. So if your guy comes home and he has listened to 9,999 words at work that day, and he walks in the door and you say, hello, he is now full and cannot hear any more words. So if you're peppering that person with stuff and he's in reaction mode, leave me alone, don't nag me, I don't want to talk about that now, you're not getting anywhere. And the same thing is true if it's coming at you. If something's coming at you and you're just batting it away because you just can't handle it, you're not being choiceful in that moment. You're not noticing that I have a choice. I am aware of the fact that my brain doesn't have to be the thing that guides me in its responsive, in its reactivity, excuse me. I can become choiceful. And that's actually how we wake up.
Mm. That is beautiful, and that awareness, is truly it's the start of everything. I believe that as well. Awareness. Second piece I really think is accepting, right? Accepting who we are, accepting ourselves, leaning into like that's the starting to love yourself, right? Like aware of the choices you're currently making, aware of the choices you have, aware of what's coming at you, learning to love and accept yourself, and then taking a new action from there, from that place. Love
Yeah.
it.
And it changes everything. It's changed my life. And we were talking pre-show about how the old me, the old, what I called the other Suzanne, I literally named her. She's the other Suzanne. She was wildly successful, but I would, at night, she would get home at night and turn into me. And I would cry and be sad, and I would have a very difficult time. I had a hard life for many, many years. And we don't have to accept that that's part of us. We don't have to let that be something that we're not able to integrate into ourselves and love about ourselves. The question is, can we be awake enough
Mm.
to realize that there are many sides of us? And so back then, when I was that version of me, I was on the Myers-Briggs and ENTJ. I was extroverted, intuitive, thinking and judging. Thinking and judging are toxic masculine traits, right? If that's what we do first. Years and years later, decades later, after all of this work, I did the Myers-Briggs again, and I came out an INFP, right? And I'm actually introverted. And it was really so relieving to understand that and be that. And I'm feeling and I'm perceiving and I'm still intuitive, but I could actually shift who I was into who I desired to be. And it's not overnight, it's been a 33-year process for me. But it is the best process, the best work you'll ever do in your life.
Mm. Well, Suzanne, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing all of this wisdom with us. Um, I know you have some new things coming up. I would love if you were able to tell the audience how they can reach you, what they can get at your website and what you have coming up that you're so excited about because it's going to be awesome.
Thank you so much for asking, and thanks for having me. So the best way to find me is I am everywhere at Follow Suzanne. So it's FOLLOW, and then Suzanne is spelled SUSANNE. So you can find me there anywhere, Instagram, Facebook. I'm not on X very much, but TikTok, that's where I am. And also my website, which is SuzanneGoldstein.com, SUSANNEGOLDSTEIN. Um, those two places are the best way to find me. In terms of what I'm working on and what's going on in my company, Dare Human, we have a huge library of online courses that range from $55 to $220, depending on the length of the program, that take people through this waking up journey. So if you feel like an emotional intelligence is something that you could really work on in yourself, we have programs in our library. You can find it on my website. They're just great, like really teaching these concepts about energy, boundaries, emotions, learning how to say no, how to love yourself, how to clear out what I call the vestibule of now. But my signature program is called Lead Like a Woman. And it is a tour de force of going through the awakening journey to the masculine energy hustle culture, the stepping out of the matrix, the fortifying of the emotional intelligence, the building of the personal power, the learning how to set a boundary, the learning how to speak to people from a place of, great power, even when you need to say no. And then once you understand all that baseline work, we really go into what does it mean to lead like a woman? What does it mean to leave behind all the toxic and unhealthy versions of masculine and feminine energy and walk in the healthy versions? And so all that information's on my website. And then I'm going to be dropping a special gift in the show notes here, which is my free 3-day strategetics training. And I invite you to go through it. And it's going to teach you how to become the king and the queen of your own energy, whether you're a man or a woman, and really feel like at the end of every day, you're satisfied about how you feel in yourself because you've learned to really become masterful at how you expend energy during the day and what you use it for.
Mm, so, so good. And all of that will be in the show notes if you need to look down through the show notes, that'll all those links will be there. And Suzanne, thank you again for being here. I appreciate you so much. It's been so wonderful getting to know you.
Thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to more and more friendship.
That's it for this episode. Thanks for listening and be sure to like and subscribe. And again, if anything resonated with you from this episode, I would love to hear from you. Email me at Hannah, HANNAH, at expansiveceo.com and tell me about it. And if you're ready for your greatest expansion, you can find ways to work with me at expansiveceo.com and at x2wealthplanning.com. That's X, the numeral 2, wealthplanning.com. So until next time, remember that there is enough, you are enough, and your birthright in this lifetime is to be expansive.